Welcome to NFL World, where the NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And before we talk about the news that's been going on, let's preview what happens championship round weekend between the Patriots and Broncos. Broncos are getting plus 5.5. Jarrett Stidham is the starter. That's a lot. 5.5 is a lot. But also, when you have a guy who hasn't thrown a pass in 2 years, and you have a Patriots team that has been really good, you tend to forget spread. That's what you tend to forget. But the Broncos defense has been really good. Yes, they gave up 30 points. Yes, that's a big number. But they were good. They forced 5 takeaways. They did a good job. They made plays, and you scored 33. Obviously, your defense is going to have to step up, because how much points is your offense going to really get you? That's going to be interesting. I'm expecting some crazy blitzes from Mike Vrabel, try to get Jarrett Stidham, who, by the way, was drafted by the Patriots. So this is a revenge game of sorts. But I'm expecting Vrabel to send some crazy, very crazy blitzes just to see what he can do. Try and use a lot more eye candy against Stidham to confuse him. I wouldn't be surprised about that. I would empty the war chest right now if I was Mike Vrabel. And for the Broncos, same thing. Not because the Patriots have a bad quarterback, but because the Patriots have a young quarterback, and because you got to find a way to get turnovers and score points off those. Short fields, trying to get the ball. Maybe you score defensive touchdowns. Whatever you have to do because of the lack of offense you have with no Bo Nix. I'm curious to see how Sean Payton dials it up on offense. I'm curious to see how Vrabel dials it up on defense. This is going to be a really fun game. Remember, these two teams faced off each other in the last game that Tom Brady and Peyton Manning ever played against each other. AFC Championship game, 2015 season, 2015-2016. And Denver came out victorious in that game. Actually, it was the last playoff game that Denver won until last week, or this past weekend, I should say. So 10 years, time is a flat circle. We all get this. I have the Patriots going and being victorious in this game because of, look, I know the Denver defense is unbelievable. They played Houston and they shocked me. They shocked me immensely. The way they played that defense, they played really well. I saw the Bills push the ball on the Broncos. I saw they were able to do that. I think the Patriots can do that. I think if you're looking at clear matchup, it's going to be offensive line of the Patriots and defensive line of the Broncos. That's the way they have to win. And for the matchup is Patriots defense versus Jarrett Stidham. That's it. That's the matchup. Because how is Jarrett Stidham going to handle this defense? That's what is this Patriot defense, which has been very good. Milton Williams has been a stud. Everyone's been doing a great job. It's, again, we talked about this yesterday. A lot of no names. No, some people you never heard of, or one or two people you have heard of. Robert Spillane, you got Carlton Davis, you got these guys who are making plays, and you know who those guys are. But they're not big name guys, but you know who they are. Milton Williams, you know who he is, but the rest, you're like, okay, who's that? Who's that? There's a lot of those guys, and they are having this much success. And for the Broncos, you have to find a way to get this offense off the field. You have to keep them off the field as much as possible. You have to find a way to get that Patriot defense tired, making mistakes, and see if you can get a win. But I'm going to take the Patriots to win this game 28-17. Moving on to the Rams and Seahawks game. Seahawks favored by 2.5. The third meeting of this year between these two clubs. Rams won the first one. Seahawks come from behind winning the second one. We can debate all day long if it was a backward pass, if it wasn't. No Zach Charbonnet in this game, torn ACL. He's done for the year. The Rams looked shaky. Again, they looked really shaky. They looked shaky against the Panthers. I thought, okay, it's just the Panthers. They looked shaky against the Bears. It was hard to make throws. The weather seemed to be a problem for Matt Stafford. The ball kept elevating, meaning it was like he was throwing it and it kept going up like this. It kept trying to just fluctuate in the air. So it was harder for him to make. Defensively, they got pushed around, but they were good on 3rd and 4th downs. They just got pushed around quite a bit, especially in the last couple minutes. The Seahawks, I mean, they look like the best team, honestly. They're very well matched in the way that they play offense and defense. I'm just curious to see can they keep that up. Sam Darnold has thrown interceptions against this Rams team. He seems to struggle against this Rams team. But I think this is the best game of the weekend. I can see a competitive game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be back and forth. I'm going to take the Seahawks to win. And that would create a Super Bowl 49 rematch between the Patriots and Seahawks. But give me the Seahawks to win in a score of 28-24. If the Patriots if the Patriots win and the Rams win, that would also be a rematch. So we could have Super Bowl rematches anywhere, even if Denver and Seattle wins. There you go. All right, let's move on to the Mike McDaniel news. Mike McDaniel told the Cleveland Browns yesterday he was withdrawing from consideration for their head coaching job. And he apparently told a couple other teams that he was doing the same thing. And it is expected that he is going to be the offensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Chargers. He goes to a team where he can be the coordinator, where he can call the plays, which is what he wants to do, where he's also given a quarterback in Justin Herbert who can throw the ball all over the yard. He's given some weapons. They need to do more, I think, in the weapons department. I mean, they got to just get healthy. That's the big thing. But if they can get some more weapons, I think that would help. And he's got a great defense. He will be in good spot as the offensive coordinator. He goes from having Tua to having Herbert. It's a good. Was I surprised that he took this job or expected to take the job? According to Pelissero, it hasn't been confirmed that unless there's a head coaching job that has his name on it, the chances are he's going to take the Chargers job, the Chargers OC job. I like the move. I do. I think it fits him well. Goes back to the West Coast. So that works. I like it. I like it. Plus, if you're the Chargers, you want to move. Like, don't forget, Jim Harbaugh said this last offseason. He said, my focus has shifted a little bit. My job is to get Justin Herbert into the Hall of Fame. Greg Roman, in my opinion, doesn't help you do that. He's an offensive guy. They want to run the football, run the football, run the football, run the football. Fine, but it hasn't had much success. With Mike McDaniel, you're going to be running the football, but you're going to have some creativity. You're going to have some motions. You're going to do different things to get open. I think that fits them very well. And I think Jim Harbaugh is the right guy to lead that. I think Mike McDaniel is the right guy to lead the offense. I like that choice. I really do. It also takes one of the best coaches off the board, which is indifferent and a complete other thing. Now, let's talk about this Bills press conference that happened, just a little while ago. This press conference, what a weird press conference this was. Because the way season-ending press conferences go is the owner, the general manager, the head coach. They'll all sit at the table. They'll all answer questions. Most of the time, it's just owner over there not speaking, and it's the general manager and head coach answering questions. That's not what happened because obviously Bills fired Sean McDermott, so they don't have a head coach. So it's just the owner and general manager / president of football operations, head of football operations, whatever you want to call it. And in this situation, they asked Brandon Beane about Sean McDermott, the firing of Sean McDermott. And he said, yeah, I could have done some things better, but we all could have done some things better. Which it kind of feels like they're trying to shift the blame over to Sean McDermott's side. We talked about this yesterday. We said, if we're going to blame Sean McDermott for everything, we can blame him for the defense. We can blame him for the wins and the losses. We can do that. We can blame him for the lack of playoff success, even though they have been successful. We can blame him for that. But we're shifting the blame of the offense onto Sean McDermott too. We can't do that because he doesn't run the offense. It's kind of like, I thought about it this way. Think of an athlete. Think of a pro athlete. He comes in, like, let's say you have a baseball player and you have him come to your house and you want him to fix your safe. Chances are he's not going to know how to do that. The chances are pretty good. Not saying that he won't know, but the chances are he probably will. The chances are pretty good. It's just not an accurate statement. It's just not accurate. He's not going to know how to do anything medical. Why are you asking him to do that? You're doing the same thing with Sean McDermott. He's a defensive coach, and you're blaming him for offensive issues. We said the same thing about Robert Saleh last year, if you remember, when Robert Saleh got fired. And we said, the defense is really good. Robert Saleh is a defensive coach. Yet you're blaming him for offensive struggles. It doesn't make sense. I mean, yeah, sure, he can be involved in the offense, but he's not an offensive coach. That's still, all that responsibility still goes to the offensive coordinator. Now, if you're going to blame him for the offensive coordinator hiring, okay. You can do that. But you can't blame him for the offense because he's not an offensive coach. You're doing the same thing to Sean McDermott. Because the owner, unprompted, I want to say, went and said this about Keon Coleman. He said, Sean McDermott wanted to draft Keon Coleman. Therefore, we drafted Keon Coleman. That is not how it happens. I don't know why they said that. I don't know why he said that. I mean, the level of ineptitude, because it's either ineptitude or naive. It's either ineptitude or naive. And I really think it's more ineptitude. Because being naive, you just don't know better. Ineptitude means you know better and yet you chose to say something else. Like you knew. The level of ineptitude they had. Where they blamed it on Sean McDermott. Like, yeah, maybe Sean McDermott wanted him, but Eventually, it goes to the general manager who said, I like that pick too. Let's go with it. That's how that works. Let me explain how this works. These guys who work on drafting prospects and how prospects are going to be in the draft have started working since the beginning of the season about potential prospects. They start working in the beginning of the season. They work all year long, and they're working on these prospects. And then they get to the end of the national championship games, and then they go to the bowl games. They go to playoff games. They go to the Senior Bowl. They go to the Shrine Bowl. They go to all these games. They go to everything. They drive all over the country. They do pro days. They do workouts. When they do combines, they go to the combine. It's a whole process. It's a whole process. They go everywhere. They go everywhere. They're in meetings. They're doing everything. It's a process. It's a year-long process that never really stops. It doesn't stop. There's a couple dull periods, and that's mostly when the season's going on. But for the most part, it's throughout. It's throughout. You're always grabbing information from somewhere about this player, that player, this player, that player, this coach, that coach, whatever. How is this player? How's this player? You're always grabbing information. And they're blaming the Keon Coleman. They're basically trying to shift all the blame from not just the reason that Sean McDermott got fired, but the Keon Coleman situation. They're trying to throw that all on Sean McDermott. It's not working because we live in a world of we can smell the BS. We can see it. When really the person you should be blaming is Brandon Beane, the guy you promoted. You promoted him. Because outside of Josh Allen, you have two Pro Bowlers that you've drafted, Dion Dawkins and James Cook. That's it. You're putting your coach in a terrible situation. The fact that he's as successful as he was in spite of your front office, not because of. They've drafted horribly. They've done some good free agents. They all got hurt. Josh Coleman got hurt. Not his fault. It happens. You can't put all the blame in it. Say, well, it's this guy. It's not how it works. Also, if Keon Coleman, I'm not saying Keon Coleman's a bust. I'm not saying that. I think he's a good player. I think he's a player who needs to go up, but I think he's a good player. He just needs to go up, which when you give in all that money at a very young age, that is expected. Yeah, you cannot say, okay, the percentages are very low, they'll act this way. Now, again, he needs to go up. If I'm Keon Coleman, I went and talked to these guys. I did my interviews this week. I'm doing my interviews. If I haven't done my interview yet with the owner for the season-ending interview, I'm going to be like, what the hell? What happened? What did I do? What did I do? Like, if you don't want me here, let me go. Let me go and have a chance. That's what he's asking. But I guarantee you, if Keon Coleman would have been a two-time Pro Bowler already, an All-Pro, and all that stuff, and would have been the nicest guy in the world, I mean, yes, he's still doing this, but he's killing it on the field. They would have taken that success and said, oh, it was our job. It wasn't Sean. That's what they would have done. They would have said, oh, we were the ones who judged him, not Sean. Like, that's what they would have done. I have one more thing to say before we go. Mad Dog Russo was on ESPN today, and he said that he had sources, people who were close to the situation, who told him that Sean McDermott, prior to the deadline, the trade deadline, and prior to the end of the season, went up to the front office, went up to Bean, went up to the owner, went up to everybody and said, what we currently have is not a Super Bowl roster. We need to get more. We need more. They brought in Brandon Cooks. That's not more. I mean, Cooks was good, but that's not more. That's not more. You got everyone got injured. Ed Oliver got injured. You didn't bring in a replacement for him. Matt Milano was fighting through injuries back and forth. Your receivers were injured to here to back, here to back, here to back, over and over and over again. Dave Davis got hurt in the playoffs. Like, you had nothing. And yet you said, we're just going to keep it going as it is because they wanted the excuses. It was just, it feels like they threw him. But we said this yesterday, that he was scapegoated. He was scapegoated. To me, that's exactly what he was. Because you don't promote the general manager for doing a bad job. You don't do that. With the track record he has, you don't do that. And then fire the coach who has a good track record because he's wasting Josh Allen's time. When really you didn't give McDermott and Allen any resources to use. You said, here. You're basically saying, here's a horse and buggy when everyone else has an electric car. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Everyone else has a car and I have a horse and buggy. Not by choice. Because that's what I was given. That's what it feels like. Let me know in the comments who you have winning this week. And also, were you surprised by the Bills press conference and what occurred during the press conference? For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.